Welcome to Momentum Investing, property investing made easy. One of the world's top podcasts on property investing, bringing you the top experts in the field so you can learn firsthand what it takes to create passive income and take control over your financial future.
Hello, Momentum Investor, and welcome to the Momentum Investing Podcast. We have a super exciting show for you today. We have the founder of PIN, the Property Investor Network, who do over 50 events every month around the UK, the author of Property Magic, Simon Zutshi himself, as the guest on today's show. So we are super excited for you to join us. He's going to be talking about how to structure lease options and be able to do them as an international, as a local, and how you can start doing lease options, how to negotiate them, how to structure them so that you can start getting these no money down deals, so that you can build your property portfolio faster than you maybe imagined possible and start reaching that goal of financial freedom. I am super excited about this episode. I've known Simon for a long time, and he is one of the top people in the British property market. He has helped thousands of people all over the UK with his PIN meetings, with his masterminds, with his mentorship. And I'm so excited to have him share directly with you some of these powerful lessons. And what he's focusing on mainly now is lease option strategies. There are incredible opportunities right now in the market. So make sure you listen. And he has a big surprise for you during this episode. So make sure you listen through and take notes. Welcome to the Momentum Investing Podcast. We're here with Simon Zutshi.
Hello.
Welcome. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Danny. I'm really honored to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I mean, you have helped so many people all around the country, all around Europe, I would say, in investing and how to get these results. And I was actually recently looking at your book, Property Magic, and I know, it's sold in thousands and thousands of copies. But so I wanted to kind of ask, what do you feel were the key takeaways that that you taught people then when you wrote that book?
Okay, so I think there were probably two fundamental things that come out of Property Magic. The one is that actually a lot of people assume that you need to have a lot of money to invest in property. And of course, if you have some money, it's much easier to start with. Most people get into real estate investing through releasing equity from their own home, or maybe they've inherited a property, or maybe they've become an accidental landlord and they got a property and they've kind of rented it out and it's gone up in value. They can release the money to become a deliberate landlord. So that's the first thing, that people think you need money, but actually there are lots and lots of strategies where you don't actually need a lot of money, whether that's rent to rent, where you take on someone else's property they're struggling to rent out and you rent it out in a different way to maximize the income. The landlord's very happy because they get a guaranteed rent and no void periods, and you make a margin between what you pay the landlord and the rent you charge. So that can work really well. You can use it on HMOs, houses of multiple occupation, and also serviced accommodation. And one of my favorite strategies, which I think is even better than rent to rent, is what's called a purchase lease option. And that's where you control a property. You don't actually own it, but you control it, which means you can get cash flow and equity growth from a property that you don't even own. That means you don't need a big deposit. You don't need a mortgage. Very, very powerful tool. It's one of those tools, and it is really a tool as opposed to a strategy, because it can be used in conjunction with pretty much every other strategy. It's one of those things that a lot of people don't know about, and when people do know about it, they get very excited and they rush out and try and do one, and they use it when it's not really appropriate. So like anything, you need to learn how to use these tools correctly, and when you use them correctly, they're going to be an amazing solution to help solve a property owner's problem, and you get a great result as well.
Yeah, so I love lease options myself. Actually, all the way back in episode 2, we had Richard Shepard on to talk about lease options.
Richard, yeah.
Yeah,
lease options are brilliant, and actually, I guess that's what my new book's all about.
Oh, really? All right. So please, tell us about the new book. It's coming out soon.
So it's coming out. It's one of those books that I've been, in fact, in the latest edition of Property Magic, episode number 6, volume number 6 rather. And I keep on updating that because the market keeps on changing. So if you want to get Property Magic, the latest one is number 6. And in there, I actually have a chapter about options. Because it's one of those things that a lot of people, I say, have heard about them, but don't really understand them properly. And so it's a really powerful tool. I've been using options since about 2007. They actually come from commercial property. A lot of people buy businesses, they buy land on an option, they then get planning permission, they then exercise the option. A purchase lease option is where you not only control it, but you actually pay a monthly fee to the owner, and then you get to use that property. So the new book is called No Mortgage Required, because you don't need to get a mortgage. And I think that's one of the big problems that stop people moving and think, oh, I don't know if I can get a mortgage, and maybe my credit's not good enough. Maybe I've got too many mortgages. If you're a portfolio landlord, you've got more than 4 properties in the UK, it's hard to get mortgages because they want to make sure that all the mortgages work, not just the one you actually buy the property. So all sorts of reasons why people can't get mortgages. Maybe someone is, they're a doctor, they're earning a lot of money, but because they're not from the UK, unless they've been here 3 years, they can't get a mortgage. So they could use an option to get a foot on the ladder. And the thing I love about options is you can use it not only as an investment tool to get an income, you can actually get an option to live in yourself. So rather than buying a house and tying up loads of your money as a deposit, or getting a mortgage, which maybe you're self-employed, you can't prove what you earn, or you don't have enough years of accounts, you can get your foot on the ladder by controlling a property with an option. And right now, there are 2 things that mean options are absolutely the best strategy for the next probably 12 or 18 months. And those are these. So first of all, right now, at the time of recording this, in the UK, as most of the world, we've been in lockdown. Things are opening up a bit now. But you know what? The lenders are starting to lend again. But there's a very good lender I know is not taking applications for new HMOs. Lenders have all increased their rates. The loan to values come down. So actually, it's a bit trickier to buy property. And actually, the surveyors are down value. I've got a big property that's a block that I own that's 7 flats. And I'm just remortgaging it, and I was hoping to get a valuation about 950, just under $1 million, and it came back 750,000. And the surveyor's comments were, the value is 750 because we don't know what's going to happen because of COVID-19. Yeah. So he just assumed the market was going to come down, downvalued it probably 15, maybe even 20%.
Yeah, 200K in a down valuation. That's 150K out of your pocket right there.
Exactly. And ironically, it's the surveyors that are going to cause the market to come down, because they're the people that value the property for the banks. And if they're all bringing it down, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. So what that means is the first criteria is right now, it might be difficult, harder than before to actually get mortgages to buy property. That's the first important point. There are always people who need to sell. And I believe that, we're going to see prices come down for the following reasons. First of all, unfortunately, UK is going to go into recession. We've seen lots of businesses are going to close. People are going to lose their jobs. It's not going to be a great situation. That normally causes less confidence in the property market. As we saw in 2009, property prices come down. I don't think they're going to come down as much as that because it was different circumstances. But I could see, on average, around the country, 10 to 20% discount in prices maybe. Now, that's good if you're buying, not so good if you're selling. And I think there are lots of landlords in particular, and I'll come back to those in a moment, who might say, well, I want to sell up. And they might be worried about the value of their property dropping maybe 30%, which is what happened in 2009 in some places. So they might be prepared to sell at a discount now and get the sale agreed so that they're not losing too much. Okay? Yep. Now, let's go back to these landlords because, excuse me, sorry. We can edit that out.
We edit that out. Yeah, we got that.
So let's go back to these landlords, because that's the second reason why now is such a great time for options. The first one is, might be difficult to get bank funding. The second one is that in April 2017, the UK government introduced what they call Section 24. And what that means is they've changed the way that we are taxed as property owners. Now, it always used to be the way that if you were going to hold property, it was best to hold it in your own name. There were lots of tax reasons for that. With this change, though, a lot of people moving forward are buying within a company structure, okay? Now, it's important to understand that, that you need to take, independent advice on what's the best structure for you. But generally moving forward, most people are doing it within a company structure.
And I could tell you, for us internationals, we love this.
all of a sudden it
Absolutely.
put you guys on the set, kind of, it evened the playing field, because when you guys were getting 1-2% interest rates and we were looking at 4 or 5, you could
Yes,
outbid us on any deal. Now we're
absolutely.
looking
It's
at
made
very
it much
similar
easier for
mortgages.
investors. Yeah, absolutely.
It
And actually,
benefits us like crazy.
because so what that means is also that there are more and more mortgages available now to companies than there were before. So actually the gap between owning in your own name and owning a company has actually come down as well. So that competitive advantage, which we might have had over foreign investors in the past, it's being eroded away. Okay.
Definitely. And a lot of these lenders are saying, we don't care if the directors are foreign or local. Our interest rates over the last, well, since Section 24 came to be, is from an average offer of 7%. Now we're down to 3.5, which is right in line with where you guys will be.
Absolutely. So you've got these landlords who they might have been landlords for 10, 15, 20 years. And their exit strategy is to eventually at one point sell their property portfolio. Let's talk about landlords. Now, there are landlords who have owned property for 10, 15, 20 years, and their exit strategy is to eventually sell their property. Now, some of those landlords, well, they might want to pass it on to their kids, but very often the kids see how hard their parents have worked. So I'm not interested. I don't want to do that. They like the money, but don't want the work, right? So what this means is because of Section 24, we are seeing a lot of landlords are bringing forward their retirement decision. And how do we know this? Well, look, as you probably know, Dan, I run the Property Investors Network. It's a network of 51 meetings around the country, usually physical. Right now, they're virtual. But you know what? We're going back to physical when we can. And last year, in 2019, we saw a lot more landlords come to those meetings to try and say, well, how do I sell these? How do I get rid of them? Because it's hard for a landlord to go and sell a whole portfolio with an agent, because the agent has got to view them all. It's a lot of work for them. Not many people want to buy a whole portfolio. And then if they then get lots of individual if they get lots of individual buyers, many of those sales could fall through. So it's a real hassle to sell a portfolio. So they're coming
to loan-wise with the mortgage, that can be a real pain if you have a portfolio mortgage.
Yeah, absolutely. So these people are coming forward wanting to sell up because of all the extra tax they're paying. In a worst case scenario, you might get a landlord who's got a portfolio, they're in their own name, they're a higher rate taxpayer, they've got mortgages on all of them. Depending on the amount of mortgages and all the costs and things, it's possible for someone to literally half the money they get in their pocket after tax because of the Section 24 changes. So it can be as significant as that. So let me ask you a question, Daniel. If someone said to you, right, we've got a job that you've been doing for years and years, we want you to do the same job, have the same hassle, same problems, but you're only going to pay you half of what you currently get paid. Can you see how most people would say, hang on, I don't want to do this anymore?
That's actually what my last employer told me before I quit. I was like, yes, I started investing in property. So no, I'm not taking your new offer.
That's a great reason to quit the job, right? And that's what's happening to many long-term UK landlords. And when I say landlords, I mean someone who actually manages the property themselves. That's a job. Now, interesting, I don't do that. I've got a good sized portfolio, but I don't want to be a full-time landlord. I'm a property investor. So I have other people managing for it. And anyone who's overseas, you can invest remotely in the UK because you don't need to be the person managing the property. You need to have some people on the grounds, but you don't need to be that person yourself. So you can absolutely invest property remotely. A lot of our students, they invest where they live, or sometimes it doesn't stack up so well. So they invest in other parts of the country, and they do that by tapping into our network and meeting other people who can kind of help them on the ground, basically. Okay.
Yeah, that's the exact thing we teach. And what's great for us as internationals, we're forced to become an investor rather than a landlord.
Exactly. And I think that's what you should do. UK investors, they slip into the trap of becoming a landlord. And the reason that is because often they think, well, I don't really want to pay an agent 10% for doing this. I can do a better job than tenant. And what I used to think when I first started investing, because I was managing my own properties, was, well, I want to kind of get to meet the tenants, want to know who they are, that kind of thing. That last one, the novelty soon wears off, is all I can say.
I can imagine. I've luckily never had that feeling. I'm over here, so I'm good.
Believe me, the novelty definitely wears off. And so, and it's what I call the landlord trap. People kind of get into managing, they just get stuck doing it. So it's great to set up your portfolio in the first place that you don't want to manage, okay? So these landlords who want to get rid of their properties, now, if they sell all their properties in a year or two, they're going to have to pay a lot of capital gains tax. So in the UK, capital gains tax is the difference between what you buy the property for and what you sell it for. It's the profit, less any capital expenses. So if you put a new roof on, you can take that off, less your buying and selling costs. That's the profit on which you pay capital gains tax. Now, if it's your own home, there's no capital gains tax. If it's an investment, you have to pay that. Now, here in the UK, we have what's called a personal capital gains tax allowance. So each year you can sell shares or property and the first £12,000 is tax free. Now, if you own it in joint names, as many people do, they own it with their partner, you both get that allowance each year. So you could sell one property a year, get £24,000 of the income completely tax free. And if you're a higher rate taxpayer, it's quite good to get 24K tax free, right?
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't matter what tax bracket you're in. 22K a month tax-free is pretty nice.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. It kind of helps cover the bills, right? So the point here is that when people sell property in the UK, they try and spread it over a couple of years to get them into different tax years. Now, if you've got a reasonable sized portfolio, so I'm going to spread them over a number of years, you've got to wait. You've got to wait till you sell the very last property because you're managing them.
Yeah.
But with a purchase lease option, we can step in and say, tell you what, you can go and sit on the beach and retire next month if you want. We'll take on all the management, all the responsibility, all the hassle of these properties for you. And, you could just move on and get on with your life. Now, what happens is normally we would pay the mortgage, maybe pay a little bit of an extra amount because they're going to pay more tax on Section 24. So you pay a little bit to cover the extra tax and maybe a little bit of profit for them. And some landlords say, well, hang on, why would I give you my rental income? And what you explain to them is, well, actually, if you sold the property, you'd lose all your rental income anyway. Okay? But this way you can sell the property, but instead of selling at a discount right now, which actually, if you think about it, is, to sell a property right now, you're probably not going to achieve the full market price. No. But by doing an option, we can offer someone the full market price because
just look at it. We tend to purchase fully tenanted portfolios. We just go in and we buy them. But obviously our whole view is, look, we're buying in bulk. So I expect a wholesale price now. I'm not buying in the retail store. So I expect a discount. And obviously, as you said, the second loss they take is a big tax hit. So you're actually solving both those problems.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, I think some landlords will sell at a discount. That absolutely happens. But most landlords, to be honest, are unrealistic about how much their property is worth. And they want to, I'm sure you've seen that, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We're always in that negotiation. It is fun though, but yeah.
Of course it is. It's all a game, right? But they want to get as much as they possibly can. And most people do, right? We want to get a win.
Of course, and they deserve to. They've been working for 15 years to build it.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, obviously, we're saying, look, we're buying 100 properties from you. How about you give us a pretty good deal?
Yes, exactly. And it's so much easier dealing with you as one contact rather than 100 separate buyers. That's a nightmare for them. So you're giving them a great solution, right?
Yeah, and I can say, just to put that in perspective, when you're talking about the value of the lease option, we're getting 20 to 25% discounts on these portfolios.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference. Plus, as you say, with the taxes, it's a huge difference for them to give them to you on a lease option than to sell them up to me on a full purchase.
So they're getting the full market. Now you might think, why on earth would we want to pay the full market price? Well, there's a couple of really good reasons. So remember, this is a property which you're going to control. You don't have to put a big 25 or 30% deposit in. So you're using a lot less money, first of all. Okay. And you're going to make sure it stacks up. Obviously, you'd only do it if it's a good property, like you're buying it. Yeah. And you're going to make sure it stacks up when you actually purchase it. But you're going to get this cash flow for 3, 4, 5, however many years you've got the option for. So actually, many people, they use this to add up. And they save a lot of that money to actually act as a deposit for when they're going to buy the property. So it's almost like, in some cases, if it's a long enough option, it's almost self-funding the deposit for you, which is pretty powerful, right?
Absolutely.
And the fact that you don't have to get a mortgage, and overseas investors can get mortgages by setting up limited companies, as you know, and I know you teach that, but it is getting a bit tougher right now to get mortgages. So this is a way of making the money you do have spread a lot further. That there is usually a cost to get an option, and it varies. Sometimes you can pick up a property that's nothing to do to it, and you're just paying the legal fees and a few small fees maybe, might be 5K, sometimes it's 10K, sometimes it's a lot more. But let's say it's 10K a property on average. Well, you might have £60,000 that's enough to get you one deposit for one £200,000 property, or it's enough to get you 6 options.
Yep.
That's 6 times the cash flow, 6 times the potential capital growth. And here's the thing, we can offer the full market price now because in 5 or 7 years, we hope that the value's gone up. So today's full market price is actually a discounted price in the future.
Yeah.
And if we don't want to buy, we don't have to buy. It's the option to buy, the right to buy, not the obligation to buy. Now, my belief is that if you take a property on from an ethical and moral stance, really, you should genuinely intend to buy that property. But circumstances change. We don't know what's going to happen.
I mean, say every option that is coming to fruition now in the middle of the COVID crisis, you're going like, I had no idea this was going to happen.
Exactly.
We might have to negotiate this.
Exactly. And that's what you can do. You can either just walk away. And I think if you do that, you should give the property back in the same or better condition.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Or if it's worked really well, the owner might say, recognize the situation. Okay, well, I know you can't do it now. Happy to extend. They don't have to do that, but that's what you could do. Negotiate, and you might give them a bit more fee. You might pay them a bit more each month. Whatever the deal is, you obviously.
Which is actually a perfect example of that. We had we're doing a golf resort in South Wales, and we had just this situation where the option was coming up. COVID hit, funding kind of disappeared, and so we went to them and we just extended a 3-year extension of the option. And, they were, well, I wouldn't say happy to do it. I mean, they were looking forward to having the sale go through, but they were open to it.
They understood the situation, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And here's the thing, they're not going to find anyone else to step in and buy it anyway.
Exactly. And they didn't want it back.
Unless they're being really stubborn, they kind of have to kind of work with you, really.
Yeah.
You'd expect. So this is why I love options so much. But, the thing, as I mentioned earlier, Daniel, so many people, they think they know about options, and they try and use them when they're not appropriate. And I'll cover when they're appropriate in a moment. But I think sometimes people try using this tool, the wrong tool in the wrong circumstance, and then they incorrectly think that options don't work. There have even been some videos on YouTube for some fairly successful investors who say, options don't work. But that's because they've never done them and they don't know. And this particular guy is from Scotland, where you can't actually do options at the moment.
Right.
So you have to be very careful. Yeah. When you're looking at information online, there's a lot of stuff and people really don't know what they're talking about. And actually the information they're giving out is actually incorrect. You want to speak to people who are actually doing this stuff and who can say, well, there's a right way and a wrong way of doing it, just like anything, right? Yeah. So one of the reasons for writing this book was just wanting to put this record straight. Me and my students, we do a lot of options. It's a really powerful tool. And I wanted to give people a step-by-step, well, how do you actually find them? What do you actually do? How do you negotiate with the owner? And then really understand that, it can be a great ethical win-win solution.
Absolutely. And that's the whole thing, is if you position an option right, and that we teach options to our students. Obviously for internationals, you're mainly going through sourcing agents. So yes. Obviously there's a delay there, and we don't get the no money down version, because if it is no money down, there's a big sourcing fee on top.
Of course.
So there's always, there's a modification for us. But what's interesting is once you understand how it works and you start, especially these kind of come up when people partner with British investors.
Yes.
That's when it gets really exciting.
Here's what really exciting for international investors, right? When you understand how options work, you can actually call people. You can contact people. When you know how to find them, you could speak to them on the phone. So I don't drive. I've got really, really bad eyesight and I don't drive. Okay. So I get driven around and I get trains and all sorts of things. But what that means is when I started buying lots of property, genuine below market value in 2005, 2006, which was no money down stuff. We were using the Mortgage Express same day remortgage, which was an amazing product at the time. You can't do that anymore.
No, it's different times for those of us who came in later.
Absolutely. But I was buying property literally all over the country. And very often I was getting a lead, and some of those ones I was finding myself, I was buying leads off other people because it was outside of their area. And I was speaking to sellers on the phone. And I've got properties that I bought that I've never been to the property myself.
Yeah.
I've never met the owner. I've just spoken to him on the phone. Now, actually, now you could speak on Zoom, and it's much easier to do Zoom or Skype, and you can see the person, you can pick up the body language. It's even easier than just doing it on the phone. But the point I want to make is, guys, if you're international, it's great if you're using sourcing agents, and that's a great way to go. But don't dismiss the fact that you can go direct yourself. Now, you need a bit of help on the ground. You might have a target area. You might have a letting agent that's managing your properties for you. And if you have a gold mine area you're looking for and you start finding opportunities, you can speak to owners on the phone. You can get them to do a little video tour around your property. And then your local letting agent can maybe go in and sense check the property for you, assess what needs doing. And by the way, they can get the work done for you. They'll charge you a little fee for managing it for you, but you can absolutely do options remotely as long as you learn how to source them yourself. And
exactly. That's what we love. It's always about building that team and putting the group together.
Yes. Yeah. Having a team on the ground is priceless, really. But it's exciting because it means you can do stuff on your own. So I'm actually doing it the other way. I'm wanting to reach out and do some options outside of the UK. There are a couple of places you can't do them in Scotland. There are a couple of states in Australia you can't do them, and 1 or 2 states in America you can't do them. But pretty much they work all around the world. And it's just a case about finding the right solicitors, attorneys who understand how it works. Very, very easy in America. And I'm looking to get some property on option over there, just to prove to people it can be done remotely.
No, I love it. I love it. So let me ask you, how did you get started with options in the first place?
By mistake. So what happened was I was looking to buy a property below market value. It was a lead been given to me. I was up in Macclesfield. And so I could actually get to Macclesfield. I got on the train, went to Macclesfield, and it was a lovely stone-built former army barracks. Okay, lovely, lovely building. And someone had previously bought the barracks, split it up into individual flats and sold it on, okay? Mm-hmm. So it was an owner of a flat, had reached out to, actually it was a national newspaper advert. The person who got it is based in London. They really weren't interested in Macclesfield. They passed it on to me, telling me it was close to us. It was nowhere near me, but it was closer for me than it was for them. Right. And this was in my early days. You know what? When I think if you're starting out and you get the opportunity to speak to sellers, I would speak to as many sellers as you can. It's all good practice, basically. So I took the opportunity, jumped on the train, went up to Macclesfield, looked at this property. The situation was this guy, he was living with his girlfriend. He had this property. It needed a little bit of work doing to it. Wasn't working at the time. He had moved out. Here's the thing with his girlfriend. He couldn't afford to...
Right, to have the other home as well. Right.
Okay. Now, I looked at it and I thought, well, it's okay. It was probably about 15, 20% below market. I could just about do it as a no money down deal. So I agreed to take it on. And I said to him, look, and he was actually in arrears. He was worried about getting repossessed. So what I said was, I'll tell you what, we did a very simple heads of terms. I said, I will start paying your mortgage for you. Now, there was a risk. It was only about £250, £280 a month because it was a pretty low value property. Yeah. There was a risk that I might pay a couple of months and he wouldn't sell it to me. Yeah. But, I just sensed that actually he wasn't going to go back to the property. He didn't want to rent it out. He just wanted to get rid of this thing. He just didn't want to get repossessed. That was the most important thing to him. So I spoke to my solicitor. I got my mortgage company involved. We went around and did the valuation. I paid 1 month's mortgage for him, and then I got the bad news. And this just goes to that. By this time, this is probably about 2006, maybe very early 2007. Right. Okay, I've been investing for 12 years. I've replaced my income. I was doing okay in property. I was teaching other people at the time. But this just goes to show you never stop learning. And you don't know what you don't know.
No, exactly.
Now, normally, apartments are leasehold buildings. So you have a lease, you have a freeholder, you have a lease, you pay a service charge, etc. And houses are normally freehold in the UK. I assumed this was leasehold, and so did the estate agent. But only when we got to legals did we realize this was actually a freehold property. Mm-hmm. Now, it was an apartment. It was the top floor. of a 2-story apartment, so a ground floor and a top floor. And the problem with a freehold, if there's no management company in place, well, what happens when something goes wrong to the roof? Who fixes that?
Yeah.
You know? And so mortgage companies do not like lending. At that time, they didn't like lending on freehold apartments with no management company.
So was this a share of freehold then with the other?
No, it wasn't.
Or
It was
did they
just,
actually have the whole freehold?
Yeah, it was just a freehold. It was really weird. I'd never seen it before.
Okay.
I've never seen it since.
Right.
But because I didn't know, I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And only when it got to legal, I said, you can't get a mortgage on this. And then I realized why the guy had not just sold the property himself.
Right, of course.
Because maybe he
knew about this.
Yeah. So sometimes, and that was a great lesson, that you got to really dig deep and find out the reason why of the person, what's going on for them. So anyway, what happened was I thought, oh, bloody hell, what do I do here? And my solicitor at the time said to me, well, why don't you see if you can sell it on to someone else? Why don't you see if we can find a cash buyer? Okay, cash buyer will be fine, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, okay, so we put together, it was basically an option agreement. Right. But it was a purchase lease option because I agreed to pay the mortgage until I sold it.
Right.
So I spoke to a local agent and said, what do you reckon? And the price I was getting for was well below the market value.
Right. So you had some margin to put it up.
I had some margin in there. I can't remember the exact figures. I think I had something like 78,000 agreed, and it was probably worth 95,000, something like that. Okay. So I thought I'd be able to do it. No, it went down, but I just couldn't get the mortgage on it. So I spoke to the agent. They said, yeah, we could probably find someone. Now, it just so happens in that block, there was a guy, and they were lovely, lovely stone buildings, right? There was a guy who was buying these and he using them as what we would call serviced accommodation. He would call it holiday let at the time.
Yep.
And he was making so much money doing this. He was buying things cash. So this agent found that this came up, but put a list in it. He was interested, came along, realized it had to be cash. He was fine with that. And he got a bit of a discount. Rather than 95, I think got it for something like 85. Right. But the whole point was, I was buying it, my option was for 78. He was buying for 85. I had some costs in that. I had some legal costs. I paid the mortgage. I had the estate agent fee. But I think I walked out with about $3.5, $4 grand profit on something that could have been maybe a couple of £1,000 loss because I'd spent money on legals, mortgage application. I'd paid a couple of months of mortgage. So I could have lost money. But luckily my solicitor said, hey, why don't you do this? And that's kind of when I first became aware of this tool, because I said, well, look, I don't want to put it on the market and then the owner or the buyer will go direct to the owner and cut me out.
Yeah.
But because we had a purchase option agreement in there, they couldn't do that.
Right.
So that was when I learned about, through a mistake, learned about controlling property.
Well, I love that. You walked out of a losing deal with some profit and lessons. I mean, that lesson has earned you probably millions since. So,
well, I've probably not made millions from options, but I've made hundreds of thousands, certainly, you know. And so I started doing options, and, you know, I think I learned, and there are a couple of other people I learned from about that. And, you know, I'm always investing in myself. If I don't know how to do something, I will go and find the best person I can who's not just good at doing it, but they've also become good at teaching other people. You know, there are a lot of people who, especially in the last couple of years, who've popped up teaching people how to invest in property, and they've only done maybe a couple of deals themselves. Now, they got some results, and I think they try and they do it based on being a couple of properties ahead of the people they're teaching.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've been doing this a very long time. We have great results for people. And so I know I will go and find. So right now, I'm actually educating myself in commercial, but I'm not a commercial property guy. I've bought about 5 commercial properties, but I've turned them all into residential.
Right.
Whereas actually what's happening in the UK market with all these businesses going bust, retails, you know, what was happening before anyway, because the internet has been speeded up because of this pandemic. And we're seeing more and more retail businesses unfortunately close. There's going to be lots of retail units. There's going to be office blocks available because people are realizing, hey, do we really need a big office block for all these staff?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's really interesting right now, I think, is
absolutely
offices that are going to just switch to home office, and we're going to have office blocks available. Yeah,
office to resi is going to be a big thing. So whenever there is a downturn, where there are problems, there's always opportunities if you have the right mindset and you know where to look, basically. And by the way, guess what? Residential property, commercial property, developments, those can all be controlled by options. This is why I just love options so much.
Yeah. And I mean, what I think is so exciting about the market now, especially for the students we have, for both of us coming in now, is it's the kind of the Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. But honestly, I'm almost envious of those who are starting right now rather than, a few years ago, because they're coming in at really like a dream scenario time right now.
Absolutely. Prices are going to be lower than if you came in a couple of years ago, probably. And actually, they've got these, options have been available for a long time, but I think they're even more applicable right now. There are more and more
lands. More people are learning what they are too. So there are more solicitors. So I know that was a problem. Just go back 5-10 years. And when someone would approach someone, they would say, okay, lease option, that sounds cool. They would talk to their solicitor and their solicitor would say, that sounds illegal. We can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. And is it interesting, whenever a solicitor is confronted by something they don't know or don't understand, their standard option, or don't like, that sounds illegal to me.
Yeah.
try and put the clients off, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't want to admit they don't know.
No, exactly. So it's no, that's not legal. But I think more and more are learning about have learned about lease options in the last half decade. And I think we're seeing that less often, at least from my point of view.
So here's a big tip for everyone, right? If you go to a conveyancing solicitor, a residential solicitor who would normally do a house or property transactions, many of them will not have heard of purchase options and purchase lease options. So if they're a big enough firm, say, look, have you got a commercial conveyancing department? And if they have, so go and speak to your colleagues in commercial property, because if they're commercial, if they're worth anything at all, they will be familiar with some options they've done in the past.
Commercial lease options has been around for, I remember, and this, I know this is not completely okay in the political climate to say, but I remember, 12 years ago reading about Donald Trump building his property portfolio purely on lease options.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's exactly 40 years ago or something. That's all he did, getting lease options in Manhattan.
Yeah, exactly. On rundown property in an area that no one thought there was a load of crime in that kind of time, and it wasn't a great place. But he was visionary. He saw the potential. He was able to control those buildings. Now, often he might not have put down £1. He might have put down more than that to control that property. But still, you control a multi-million-pound development for a fraction of what you'd normally put in.
Yeah. And that's what we're seeing now. Imagine now having like an office block come up in say Birmingham and getting that on an option. That's
exactly. Well, that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah. So that's probably going to start coming up and be more and more common now.
Yes.
And for those coming in now, I think another benefit is I think a lot of landlords are going to be caught out a little bit with the Corona pandemic and might not have the opportunity that they kind of might have had in the last crash, where they might have foreseen it a little more and been able to position themselves to release cash. Now, a lot of people are caught unawares, and it's the new people coming in with fresh money, so to speak, that can really do stuff.
The other challenge you have with an option, just to kind of complete the circle, if you like, is that often people try and do options with a estate agent. And let me give you a great way how you can this is a great way to find options, right? If you can find a property on Zoopla, Rightmove, all of the big search engines that is for sale and also listed for rent, that is a potential option. Because basically the owners say, look, I want to sell this, but if I can't sell it in the meantime, I'm prepared to rent it, right? That's a great way to find options with agents. But what happens is most investors then go in and say to the agent, I want to buy this house, but I don't want to buy it now. I want to buy it in 3 to 5 years. What do you think the agent tells that person?
The agent is saying, I want my commission now, Verb. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no way they're going to agree to an option. Whereas what we teach is that actually, if you go in and you say to the agent, look, I've got something, look, this property is not selling. You're not making any money if it's not selling. I've got something I'd like to talk to you about, you and the owner with. And if we can come up with a deal that works for the owner and works for me, we can actually get this transaction done very quickly. So instead of it taking 3 or 4 months for this deal to complete when you get paid, we can probably get it done in about 3 or 4 weeks. Are you okay getting paid by the owner in about 3 or 4 weeks? What do you reckon the agent's going to say?
No, they're going to be over the moon, of course.
Okay. We say, look, everything's done through solicitors. Why don't we have a call with the owner and we can go through it and see if we can come up with a deal? And then basically what you do is the option fee that you would normally pay to, it's got to be at least £1.
Yeah.
You can actually arrange to, as part of the option fee, pay the seller what they would normally pay to the estate agent.
You just add the 1-2K that they would be paying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're giving the seller the agent's fees that they can then pay to the agent once the option's signed. So actually they're pretty happy. So what I've done is in the new book, I've actually, the first bit I've described, why would someone do this? What's the benefit for the owner? What's the benefit for the estate agent? What's the benefit for you as the owner? And I've deliberately written it so investors can take the book, give it to their local estate agent, and rather than trying to explain to the agent, the book explains to the estate agent how everybody wins.
Right. That's cool. That's cool. Which means, of course, all of a sudden the estate agent might go, you know what? I'll just go buy this property myself on a lease option.
Well, they might do. But it's a bit like if you say to an agent, I'm going to buy this house, I'm going to turn it into an HMO, refinance, take all the money. They'll go, oh, brilliant. They still don't know how to do it.
No, exactly. No,
right.
But I love that though. It gets them on your side, which is amazing.
Which is really important. Yeah, exactly.
And of course, the great thing is if you might be doing that for one deal, but the great thing is with estate agents is obviously they're salespeople. They're hungry. So once they do deal number one, they're going to be calling you every time going, hey, Simon, by the way, I got another deal that I think we could do this on. That's
right, Daniel. Absolutely. And here's the thing, agents want to work with it. You want to get in the little black book of the agent. They give you a call whenever, it's an appropriate time, right? And you want to get in that black book. They know what your criteria are and they know you're going to move quickly and they get paid within 4 weeks instead of 4 months. They're going to be starting to give you a call.
Oh yeah, they're your buddy now.
One more tip that people can use straight away, because I want to give lots of value in this podcast. And that's this, in that you can go to estate agents and look for properties which are cash only purchases. Okay, now why is someone cash only? Well, maybe it's because they've got a short lease. If it's less than 70 years on a leasehold property, you can't get a mortgage. It's got to be cash only. Maybe it's a property that it's not habitable. It doesn't have a kitchen or a bathroom, not habitable. You can't get a mortgage. Maybe there's some structural issues, like they've got subsidence where it's starting to sink into the ground or has done in the past. Again, you can't get a mortgage. Now, all of these things are fixable. So what you could do is you go and agree a price with the owner, you secure the property on a purchase option, then you fix the problem. So you get the builders to come around to actually do the work to fix the subsidence, or you extend the lease or whatever it might be. You fix the problem, suddenly it's mortgageable and you get to buy it at the discounted price you agreed because they were basing it on a cash only purchase. So again, a really powerful way to work with agents to get option deals.
That's fantastic. I love it. I mean, Simon, this was great. You gave us so much value here. And I think I know a lot of people in the Momentum community are excited about options. I mean, this is we've been saying this for probably close to 10 years. It's been the holy grail of property investing. But I think, as you say, it's coming into its own now and really becoming available. So if people want to reach out to you, if they want to get a hold of you, obviously, if they want to get your book, how do they do it?
Okay, we'll cover this. If you've not read Property Magic, Property Magic is a excuse me. Let's do that again, shall we? Yeah. Well, if they've not read Property Magic, that's a really good start. You can get it on Amazon. 6th edition is the one you want, the latest edition, or you can actually get an audio as well on Audible. So I'd go and pick up that. It gives a real.
Great. I do everything on Audible, guys. So just go to Audible and get Property Magic.
Absolutely, it gives you really good understanding of the UK property market. I try and cover a lot of the strategies to really bring you up to speed. You can't learn everything in a book, obviously, but it will give you a really good thing. And what I've done is also try and inspire you by putting actual case studies of some of our students in to show you just what can be achieved. So I think that's a great place to start. If you want, and also there is actually a podcast. Well, there's the Property Magic podcast. And as you're listening to this podcast, you obviously like podcasts. So go and check out the Property Magic podcast. I share some of the content from the book, and also I share some of the content from my 12-month property mastermind program as well. So definitely worth listening to that. The new book, we're going to put a link. There's a website which is nomortgagerequiredbook.co.uk. I think it's going to put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll add a link. That's a long URL, so I'll just add a link to it.
It is, unfortunately. It's not ready yet. It's going to be ready soon, but you can go and pre-order it. When you pre-order it from us, it's £10, so we're happy to send it overseas for that as well. And actually, there's going to be some extra free training we're going to give to everyone who actually buys that as well. So well worth going and getting that. If you want to connect with me, I have a YouTube channel. So there's a link to that. There's also free content on there. Simon Zutshi, Zutshi. I'm on Instagram. If you actually want to connect and reach out, probably LinkedIn is probably the best way. I do have a Facebook page, but that's kind of full. And I have a fan page, which is Property Investing with Simon Zutshi as well. So loads of resources there. I'm sure you can put the links in the show notes, Daniel, for people to connect.
I'll get that sorted, yep.
Help support. I know, Daniel, we're doing some stuff together. So if we help support in the future, we'd love to do that.
That sounds great. So everyone, you can go to, in the show notes, I'll have all these links so you don't have to try to remember it. So you have the Property Magic podcast, you have the Property Magic book, 6th edition, because you want the new stuff. You got the coming book will be in the show notes, as well as all the different social media links. So you'll be able to reach Simon any way you are comfortable with. And I appreciate everyone who listened. I appreciate you being here, Simon. Thank you so much for sharing.
Daniel, thank you so much for asking me, and best of luck with the podcast. And everyone, remember to invest with knowledge, invest with skill.
All right.
So thank you so much for listening. I hope you found that valuable and that you got a lot of good tips that you can start implementing into your investing career. I'm so excited that we had Simon on this call. I was very proud to have him here and to have him share about his new book and the exciting new strategies and the way he's using lease options was really, really incredible. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And if I could ask you a favor, I would really, really appreciate this. We're working every single day to grow this podcast, to grow the community and have more people come into it so that we are more people that can support each other. So if you could please leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you're watching this podcast on, that would really, really help and support us. It would allow us to get the message out to more people and have more people see the power of learning from these experts. So please use whichever platform you're using, if it's Google, if it's Apple, iTunes, Spotify, please give us a 5-star review. Let other people know about the value they're getting. I would really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much for doing that. And for those of you who've already given us that 5-star review, I really appreciate it. It means so much to me. So thank you so very much. Now, our next episode is one you definitely want to see. We went over the pond all the way to the US, and I found the person that taught me how to start investing. He was there at the first moment at my first workshop when I started learning how to invest in the UK. He flew over all the way from the US that time. This time we could do it over Zoom. I had the one and only Pip Stellick as a guest here on the show. So next week he's coming on and he's going to be sharing a lot about what's going on in the US market and how to do sourcing, because that's one of the things he works on today, sourcing and financing deals. So he's going to be showing you how you can structure your deals, how you find deals, and a lot we discussed what's going on in the overall property market and the overall global economy. So how can you be ready for it? How can you structure your portfolio? How do you find these top deals when the market is in such flux that it is now? Pip I have so much respect for him. Again, he was one of the people that taught me to invest from the beginning, and I'm so proud that we had him on the show. So please make sure you subscribe to the podcast and stay tuned for the next episode, because that is one you definitely want to see.